Welcome everyone, it is that time of year again. We have a new Magic set, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, coming out soon, and it is time to get ready for pre-release. I do cover a lot of things in detail, but I also try and keep it really brief since your time is valuable and so is mine. If I don't cover something that you have a question about, feel free to leave it in the comments. I do answer them. And also, if you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Let's dive in. Let's start with the deserts. These are great cards. They commit crimes on ETB. They fix for mana. I would run them even in a 2-color deck. I might even consider running a desert that has one off color that's not even in my deck just to be committing the crime and pinging for 1. You obviously have to be a little bit careful with how many dual lands you're putting in your deck that come in tapped, but in some decks, that negative of it coming in tapped is still totally worth running it. So just be on the lookout for the deserts. They're good fixing. They're good ways of committing crime. I like the way the deserts look at common level. The uncommon deserts have some interesting play mechanics as well. And then there's a small run of the fast lands at rare. If you're playing those 2 colors, those are great cards to have in your deck. The fixing for the set is really good, not just on the lands, but in the creatures themselves as well. There's a lot of options to fix. There's treasure tokens, there's artifacts that fix. This set does lend itself to playing more than just 2 colors. You don't have to, of course. There's also just really good streamlined 2-color builds within the set, but the sky's the limit here. I think there's a lot of viable win cons and builds, and that makes this set exciting. It's just really good to see in such a strong set equally good fixing so that you can make some combos for some nice splashes and you can really live the dream. The new mechanics introduced in the set are Outlaws. Outlaw is just a general, broad-based grouping of creature types that include assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. Those are all Outlaws. If the card cares about outlaws, it tells you what an outlaw is. It's printed on the card. This shouldn't be too confusing. There's also mounts and saddle. Mounts are the creature type. Saddle is the activated ability. To saddle a creature, you just tap other creatures with power greater than or equal to the number next to saddle, and then you'll get the saddle trigger ability when you do what the card tells you to do, and the ability that you get, or the benefit you get, is also printed on the mount card itself. These cards, you just read them, they do different things, you get benefits for tapping other creatures. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Spree is introduced in this set. It's kind of like Escalate. The Spree cards are very good. They're very flexible. They are good early. They're good late. They give you value the later the game goes if you have more mana to spend on it. But they're also just really great if you need to fire them off on turn 2 or turn 3 for just one mode. You can only pay for each ability once, so you can't like double up on the same thing on the card twice, but it's just a very good flexible card. I expect Spree to play pretty well. Plot is also a very good new mechanic where what you're going to do is you're going to exile a card from your hand, and that exiled card will be face up, and then on a later turn, not the same turn, on a later turn, you may cast it from exile for 0 mana. There are quite a lot of good reasons to use plot. Some plot creatures have just an immediate bonus effect, but a lot of them also just enable other synergies like blue-red spells wanting you to cast 2 spells in 1 turn, or white-blue wanting you to cast 0 spells in a turn. Or there are some cards that care about whether your spells cost any mana to cast or whether they were cast from your hand versus exile. So plot just really has a lot of cross synergies throughout the set. It's just a really good way to use your mana more efficiently throughout the game and allows you to get some added benefits if you read the pace of the game correctly. So sometimes your opponent's going fast, so you're going to need to ignore the plot value and just run the creature out with no added value. And sometimes it's a little bit more of a grindy, slower game, and you really need that extra value to keep pace, so you're going to go ahead and plot it and then get the creature the following turn. So just being able to read board states, read pace of the games is important if you're going to play plot really well. It can add a lot of tension to the games. These cards are face up, so if your opponent knows you might get extra value if they block one of your creatures this turn, maybe they won't block. I do think plot is going to not just impact your options, but your opponent's options as well. But I'm excited to play with this mechanic. I think it looks really fun. The most set-defining mechanic is committing a crime. When you commit a crime, you're casting a spell, activating an ability, or putting a trigger ability on the stack that targets one or more of the following. So an opponent, a spell an opponent controls, a permanent an opponent controls or a card in an opponent's graveyard. Once you cast the spell, activate the ability, or put the trigger ability on the stack, the crime has already been committed. It doesn't matter what happens to that spell or ability. After that point, the crime has already been committed, and the triggers for committing crimes for that turn will trigger. So committing crimes seems really good. The payouts seem absolutely bonkers good. And committing a crime is prevalent throughout the entire set. There are lots of ways to trigger committing crimes, including, on those deserts, that's committing a crime when it ETVs. I think the trick to making the best use of committing a crime is making sure that you're committing a crime at sorcery speed or with a land on your turn, and then having a few ways to commit crimes on your opponent's turn at instant speed will be able to double up on your triggers, since many of these benefits have a limit of 1 per turn, to make sure that it doesn't snowball and take over the format. And to make sure that we are committing crimes throughout this entire set, they included a bonus set of breaking news. And one of these cards from this set are in every single pack. So you're going to see these cards all the time, especially the uncommon ones. And it'll have really high impacts on the format and how the format plays out. I really think this is going to be like March of the Machine, where the bonus set creatures had a high impact on what was best and brought a lot of really powerful things to the table. Breaking news might be even more powerful than March of the Machine's creatures. All of these cards are just really good interaction, and interaction wins games in Limited. It's strong. I think this is the real deal. And there's some really powerful win cons within breaking news that, like, if I open them and it's in my sealed pool, I'm going for it. Crackle with power, I'm going for it. Oko, say no more. Oko's in my deck. There's also some traps. Obviously not every card reprinted is amazing, that I would just steer clear from in Limited. They're more made for Constructed. But for the most part, they're widely playable cards, and some are even strong enough to be a build around, and at minimum, it's decent interaction usually. Less set defining, there will also be a 1 in 5 chance that your pack contains a card from the list. The list this time is the Big Score and special guests. They're not going to be MIA, they will be floating around. Some are quite strong, especially from Big Score, but some are just constructed, non-limited things. But I mean, they're pretty cool cards, and if you have a good one that you want to build around, I think it's pretty cool that they're there. All right, let's dive into white. White is kind of all over the place with the creatures throughout the curve. There are a few very good cards for very specific decks, but it's a very split up color in terms of it's not just one thing it's trying to do. It is trying to do a lot of different things. So white has payoffs for mounts. It has payoffs for 1/1 counters. It has payoffs for going wide with a bunch of little 1/1s. It has payoffs for not casting a spell in a turn. It's very pulled in a lot of different directions at common and uncommon, making the curve out more difficult to get something cohesive going and sealed. You might need to rely on your other color more heavily than normal if you're playing white to make sure that you're getting good synergies throughout your curve. It's got the normal suite of removal with instant speed removal for tapped creatures or attacking creatures. Enchantment removal is everywhere. There's a few good spree cards, a few good combat tricks, and a white equipment card, all at common and uncommon level. Moving into rares and mythics, you have access to 4 pretty good rare creatures here. I think they will play out nicely for the decks that they go in. The Archangel of the Ties looks like a very strong card, just triple white. There's 2 board wipes. There are a few mono white breaking news cards that are quite good. There's also more specific cards in white, like Another Round and High Noon. Obviously, High Noon, I would want to be playing red with it, if at all. And then one last job for some nice graveyard recursion to round out just white. I think more times than not when you're playing white, you're going to lean towards playing it with green and going mounts. The archetype is very well supported throughout green and white with good enablers and payouts. They also made quite a few payouts in Naya, so that's red, green, and white. So I do think there's a good amount of times where you might actually end up in this 3-color deck. And I think if you do end up in Naya, there's a lot of red-white cards that are totally worth also including in your build that have to do with token creation, going wide, and just generally good support. Bant plot is also a thing, so you'll be able to get some strong cards from maybe the mount strategy and also from the blue-white plot strategy. So just access to a lot of different cards going Bant, and some of them are quite strong. White-black control token sacrifice also has a massive place in this set. Its interaction and removal and graveyard recursion is spot on. It's got some nice ways to be able to ping your opponent down and close out a game and rewards you for going wide. Some of the best cards in this strategy are mono black, so these also can go in this build. It just seems pretty good. Finally, I just want to touch on Esper. Look, Ariette's okay. It's a 4/4 lifelinker for 4, but the abilities underneath are pretty specific and not going to really happen. It's a little bit more of a constructed card. Void Rend is also a great card, sure. As good as these cards can be individually, I just don't see myself splashing for Esper. All right, let's move on to blue. Blue's commons and uncommons have a very hit and miss curve out. Some are pretty good, and then some are pretty okay in certain decks if you need a 2-drop. But really, blue early game is all about counter magic. There are so many ways to bounce and so many counter spells in this set that it's disgusting. I actually don't think it's possible to play blue without playing some sort of counter magic plan as the main strategy. Even the good creatures at 3-drops tend to help you with spell casting. Plot is a huge deal because it can help you double cast if you're doing red, or it can make your turns more efficient. There's some interesting pseudo removal in blue at common level, and then the top end creatures they're okay. There's some flyers that are a decent plan, but they're not anything super special compared to what the other colors are getting as their top end at common and uncommon. For breaking news for blue, there's some pretty unplayable cards printed in blue. They're mainly for constructed, just ignore those. There's also some just very good cards, right? Mana Drain in particular is very strong. The rare creatures for blue are also extremely specific. Some are better than others, but yeah, I think blue is lacking a little bit of the punch and wants you to have really high synergies. And I think the payouts in win cons will come from the other color. And for blue, just really focus on playing the best cards possible and a controlling game with counter magic and outdrawing your opponent with value. Blue-red is an obvious go-to combo. I think the spells deck is really strong, and plot does enable casting 2 spells in 1 turn to happen a lot easier than it normally does, and the burn is good. Some of the win cons are good. It's a great color. It gets a lot of help with really strong cards from the breaking news set, especially the win cons that come in from red. So if you're doing, blue-red spells, you can have direct burn damage be your win con if you get certain cards. And if you want to go into Grixis, there is Cruel Ultimatum that will reward you for doing so. Just really strong cards. I think blue-black is a very good deck. Blue-black rewards you for committing crimes with usually drawing more cards. It has some plot synergies. It's pretty good with Sultai. It's pretty good with Grixis. Blue-black is a pretty decent base of a deck. Really focuses on drawing more cards for you and playing a controlling game. Green-blue has incredible bombs. I mean, Bonnie Pal, come on. I'm splashing that if I'm playing blue. Huge creature. Oko, yeah. Make Your Own Luck looks incredible. Doc even looks really good. The green-blue breaking news cards are stellar. I mean, come on. If you want to splash into black and go Sultai, Villainous Wealth is also around. There is a Teamer Spree payout. I don't think this is going to work most times, and I don't think most sealed pools will have Riku do anything for them. Same with Obeka. Really specific card that most time is going to do absolutely nothing. I would just steer clear of this card unless you really know what you're doing and you have a perfect build for it. But otherwise, it's really not doing much for you. Moving on to black, I think black has the strongest common and uncommon creatures on curve and has maybe the best curve out in just common and uncommon. It's really close between black, red, and green. I think all 3 are very strong, but I definitely think that black has an early game that is hard to beat and is extremely synergistic. So unlike white, here we're seeing really high synergy at the common and uncommon level, meaning it's easier to build a cohesive deck when you open your seal pool with black involved. And black even has just good ways to use your mana every single turn. It has some good ways to get more resources, and even something like Overzealous Muscle, which usually isn't a very good card, well, it's Not the worst common I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, super strong. The combat tricks are strong in black at common level. The removal's strong in black. You're going to be able to commit a lot of crimes just through the black spells that are available at common and uncommon. So all of those synergies really are pretty easy to trigger, making it just an extremely cohesive color. And even the breaking news cards at uncommon for black really synergize with the set's color perfectly. The rares and mythics are equally just amazing, 1 through 3 drops, and then top end Gisa. Black has incredible cards. I can't say it enough. I do like black in this set. Even the enchantments and sorceries at rare and mythic for black are pretty good. And of course, breaking news just plays so well with black, since black does want you to commit some crimes. There's just good cards to add on and make that easier for you to do. I think black-green can be an extremely strong creature-heavy synergy deck. A lot of recursion value that way. And it's got some decent support from breaking news. And obviously, if you're playing those colors, you get access to villainous wealth. Black-red sacrifice / committing crimes is also a very strong build. It's focused on making a lot of mercenaries, committing crimes, pinging for 1. I do think that Mardu has a place in this set. So I definitely see red-black and white-black and white-red all playing nicely together. So I think, if you have a good Mardu build and you like playing 3 colors, it's extremely viable to go that direction. Speaking of red, reds, commons, and uncommons, just like black, has a really good curve out with some humor with Coyote and Roadrunner. But yeah, the creatures are high-quality creatures, especially Deadeye Duelist and the Lizard. These are massive powerhouse crime enablers during your opponent's turn. Be careful with the Lizard, though. He does ping you as well as your opponent. But, you get access to Prickly Pear, Summoner, all of these cards. Mine Raider. It's probably going to make a treasure most of the time. Good value, good bodies, good abilities. There's nothing to complain about here for common and uncommon. I think they're very strong cards that do reward you for going synergy. Same with the spells. All the instants and sorceries, they're quite good. They commit crimes, obviously, but, there's burn. There's some interesting cards here that just do a lot, right? Trick Shot gets rid of 2 things. That's nice. Quick Draw commits a crime for 1 mana. That's pretty good. Take a Ride and Fling obviously have a place in the set with all the sacrifice. Skewer the Critics can also be very good in a deck. Red has also some cards that are pretty hard to make work, but it's still just a very high quality color. The rares are strong for red. I mean, they always are. Usually it seems like they are. But these are particularly good. And of course, Terror of the Peaks is bonkers good, especially in a crime-committing deck. The sorcery and instant at rare are good in red. And of course, the breaking news win cons with Crackle with Power, even just non-win cons, just Collective Defiance as a removal. These are good cards. There is creativity in the set for you wanting to have fun with your treasure tokens and creature tokens. That's a fun card, not necessarily a great card. But if you want to have fun with the set, that's what I was trying to say at the beginning. This set has room to have fun. This is going to be a fun set. This is going to be a you dream it, you do it set. Go for it. So, if you want to do that, I think that's fine too. Red-White Aggro has some good signposts and build-arounds. Obviously, Form a Posse is pretty good. That's a huge token creator. Outlaws of Merriment can be good in the right deck, but remember, it's very slow. Red-Green is a thing, but it's not very well supported. It's supported enough, I think, but I see Red-Green being at its best with Decimate and Savage Smash, and maybe pairing it with white strategies instead. I do think it's important to note that red, green, white has some really cool things it can do with the green sorceries that make tokens that are large. So I think those are really cool combos that I would not overlook. But yeah, overall, red's a pretty strong color, and I think there's a lot of options to play red in almost any deck. Green is the color. Common and uncommon, amazing curve out. Really good ways to stop up the board so you can buy time to ramp with things like Bandit and Fix. Good, strong creatures that have plot for 2 that can make the most out of your turn 2. There's great 2-drops that are relevant even late game with removal, attached to them. You know, even the big creatures can be discarded for payouts. There's tons of token creation that's really good. There are value plays that go dig and find lands. There's big creatures that enter the battlefield to help trigger 4+ matters. Just some really solid common and uncommons across the curve, and the top end does stabilize you with gaining life and just being a really huge problem on the board. 7/7 ward reach. Green misses out on too many good things from breaking news. It does have clear shot, but that's about it at uncommon level. There is some good ramp. There's some good battle tricks. The punch spells are okay. Not my favorite though, but they're fine. The big tricks are not my favorite either, but they're fine. The spells are a little lacking in green, but the creatures definitely make up for it at common and uncommon level. Breaking news is hit and miss in green, with some that are not very playable and limited, and others that are quite good like Primal Might and Pest Infestation. My favorite part about green has to be that the rare creatures are really specific and are absolute powerhouses in the builds that they want to be in. So the Tumblewag is perfect in a mount build. I really like it. The Free Strider is great in a green-black crime deck. The Trailblazer is a really great payout for red-green. It is one of the better payouts for 4+ matters. And the Colossal Rattleworm, having flash, definitely leans into blue builds. I also like green's mythic creatures. Green has more mono-green, rare, and mythic creatures within its color than any other color. So that means in sealed, you're much more likely to open some strong green cards. And with green's fixing being so good and its early game being so good, it just looks like a fantastic color top to bottom. I think it's important to note just how flexible this set is, and that I do think that almost any 2 or 3 synergies could be combined into one deck, and it would have incredible value or incredible strength or go really wide. You know, there is the possibility for a 5-color legendary creatures matter build. So I think staying open to cross synergies between 3, even 4 colors is something with the deserts and the fixing that is feasible in a lot of seal pools and a lot of drafts. Let's finish this out with artifacts and then we'll wrap it up. All the artifacts are playable at common and uncommon level. Most of them either ramp, fix, surveil, or try and get you value. Some are better than others. I think the card that catches my eye the most out of all the artifacts is the Boombox. You know, although 8 mana total is quite expensive, for 8 mana you are getting to destroy a target artifact, a creature, and a land. And destroying your opponent's lands can be a very big deal. So I think Boombox could be better than it reads. We've had a lot of artifacts that are cheap and then cost 6 to destroy stuff, and they don't play out so well. This one I think will play out better than those other ones. All right, that is it for the pre-release guide. Thank you for joining me. Again, if you want to support my channel, please hit the like and subscribe button, and feel free to leave your comments if you have any questions, anything I didn't cover that you want more information about. I'm really excited about playing the set. I hope you are too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.